world of media is dominating the conversation, particularly among marketers. It's fascinating because while one would suspect that the brand focus would, in fact, peak out in terms of its dominance within what our responsibilities are, it's the complex and emerging world of all forms of media, digital, linear, what's happening, OTT, social media, etc., that is consuming the conversation. And while marketers are thrilled with having various forms of media to be able to put their brand messages on, it also presents an array of complexities and issues that make it extraordinarily challenging. And the most important is the ability for everyone within the client-side marketer to truly understand and manage responsibly their significant media investments. And this is very, very different from where we were 10 years ago, Andy. As you well know, when we had such a relatively simple landscape where the ability to verify what it was that you were planning to do and how to get it done and how to ensure that you were getting everything out of your media investments to assess your return on investment. That has changed because of the lack of transparency, or said another way, the increasing level of opacity that we have. And it goes to what we consider to be one of the most significant problems, which is information asymmetry, where the marketers are receiving relatively less and less information for which to be able to make responsible media investment decisions. And in that regard, we have less to make those calls and less to be able to analyze the impact of those results. As such, we are challenged with ensuring that we are protecting the investments of a corporation's shareholders to optimize those levels of investment. And as such, we need to be responsible as to how we're approaching this subject.
The advertising industry is really at an inflection point when it comes to privacy right now. I've been in this space for almost 15 years at this point, and there's just been an enormous amount of change. The last time we really saw our industry coalesce around something, I would say it was around 2007, 2008, where the industry got together and coalesced around these self-regulatory principles for online behavioral advertising. And I think for a good amount of time, self-regulation did serve this industry fairly well, but that landscape has really changed massively. I think we're no longer in an environment where we can really purely rely on self-regulation to do what needs to happen to keep our industry thriving and vibrant. I think we are at an inflection point, whereas the industry, where we once coalesced around self-regulation, we now really need to come together and coalesce around comprehensive privacy legislation. So comprehensive privacy legislation, it's something that's been debated on Capitol Hill for years. We've already seen it evolve both in Europe with the GDPR, but not just in Europe. We've seen it involved in China. We've seen it involved in various countries in South America, et cetera. And the idea is that privacy is so important to consumers, and privacy is so important to our economy to continue to grow and to continue to thrive by how we use data, that we're really going to have to regulate how data can be collected, how it can be used, how it can be utilized at a national level, so that we don't see this bifurcation of different privacy regimes happen at the state level, which is going to make it extraordinarily difficult for companies to operate across state lines and increasingly to operate in a multinational environment. So I think when agencies look at what's going on right now, agencies are an interesting player in the space because they've got a lot of different touch points when it comes to privacy. In some respects, they're very large recipients of first-party data that they get from their clients when they're working on campaigns. Sometimes they're, buying third-party data that they buy from vendors, et cetera. So agencies have so many touch points into how they're getting data and how they're using data that I think agencies increasingly have a really strong interest in seeing one national standard for how data can be collected, how it can be used, how it can be utilized, because they're basically dealing with it with so many different touch points and from so many different vendors. They really need uniformity.
Yeah, I'm really hopeful by, a lot of the advancements that are being made in the ecosystem and by, companies like ours and others that are really tackling this issue head on. Programmatic has had a lot of benefit to many partners in the ecosystem. There's marketers and advertisers have embraced that tool, and many publishers have had success with it. But it's clearly time for improvement and reinvention, and I think that's where we are now. So I'm encouraged by the increased transparency that we're demonstrating on our platforms, that our partners are demonstrating. And I'm encouraged by, how we can take this ecosystem to the next level, and have it be both data-driven and intelligent, but also consumer-friendly and privacy safe. And I think that's where we're going next. And I'm encouraged about the progress we made and where we're going to go from here.
So the idea of inclusion and kind of the social responsibility and understanding what properties our clients and GroupM is really supporting is really at the forefront of our minds and has been for a bit. When we look at the supply chain, I think first it's always focused around really understanding all the kind of players within the path, because understanding how their alignment and what their focus is on these types of issues and topics is really important as kind of a first step. So that's inclusive of DSPs, SSPs, any kind of enhancement technology layers, and then ultimately the publisher. And really getting a kind of more in-depth view of the publishers that we're engaging with, our clients are delivering on, so that we ensure that we're having a very kind of inclusive view of where our clients' dollars are going.
Clean supply is essentially a framework that helps you ensure that the supply that you're bringing in to your, or the supply that you're curating for either for your advertiser, for the agency, is suitable for the brands that you're applying that supply towards. In the past, the notion of cleaning up supply was mainly restricted to programmatic media, meaning things that media that you could bid against on the open web, etc. At this point, there is so much programmatic guaranteed buys that are already in place across all media types, across television, across audio, across just standard digital properties, that applying these same principles in terms of how you plan, buy, optimize, analyze, and go back and feed all this data back into your next planning cycle is possible for all media types. And so what I mean by operationalizing the clean supply framework is you can now apply these same principles for all media types, especially as there's more digitization and streaming happening across the media types.
The message we convey is two sides. One is there is a way to build, like I said, not only a healthy ecosystem, but as well a performing ecosystem for advertisers. And that's what we should aim for as an industry, make programmatic performing, make programmatic transparent, make programmatic valuable at the end of the day for advertiser, and easy to understand and easy to implement. Then the second piece is, it's a bit of a different conversation, but as you know, there's a lot of question about purpose advertising and the responsibility of brands in terms of how they allocate their money, and I do think that's where the role of the CMO is so critical, because they are the one who can as well influence their team about where to spend and how important it is for any top brand in the world to continue to fuel the free ad-supported web ecosystem with great dollars, with great money, with great advertising money. So I think it's these two conversations. One is, yes, the market will improve, will deliver. Yes, it's more complicated than a walled garden because there's many stakeholders, but believe in it. This is going to work. And the second side is, what's your responsibility? How do you see your responsibility or your role in continuing to favor of flourishing an open ecosystem.